And we are live. Welcome back to the Arcade Comics Podcast. I am your host, Craig Ray.
And I am Shayne Pace.
And I am Mark Russell.
So this week, I think we're just going to, this is going to be very casual. I think Shayne and Mark and I are just going to keep it loose, talk comics.
Talk about what we've been reading.
Talk life, and, you know, just everything in general. So I guess, what have you been reading, Shayne?
I've been reading this week. What did I read? I read Batman Dark Age number 3. It's coming out next week.
Yeah.
And I told you, people who have been listening to the show for decades know that I think Wonder Woman by Tom King and Dan Sampere right now is the best book on stands. And number 5 of that series was my favorite issue of the year.
Yes.
Until I read Batman Dark Age number 3. And it has supplanted that for me.
I agree. I was waiting for, and I'm sorry, Mark.
Have you read this?
It might be. Have you read this one?
Have I read Batman Dark Age number 3?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Once or twice. It was okay.
I gotta say. So the thing about this book too, that great writers have written about it in Batman, but nobody has done it so succinctly and so straightforward. Is that one of the biggest issues facing Gotham is the poverty rate, and then the cyclical rate of big business is corporations that they're suppressing, they're making it, they're getting out, they're getting away with things that people like the Falcones are getting away with on a small scale, but they're doing it legally. And then and this Wayne is making pharmaceuticals, so they're making the drugs that and getting the people hooked, and then the
first one's free.
And then those lives get ruined, and then they are out on the streets now. Between that and poverty, there's a spike in the crime rate, and Batman has to punch those guys. But why? They're not necessarily the bad guys. They're just caught. People in Gotham, everyone is essentially caught up in a cycle that's, designed to kill everybody, but the choice few.
Well, and I feel like this is what's happening with America's cities now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a homeless problem that's just outrageous, largely fueled by opioid addictions, and in particular fentanyl. But most of the people who have opioid addictions got them from, prescribed medicines, from painkillers, back when the pharmaceutical companies were telling everyone they're not addictive and we could prescribe as many as you want and you'll be fine, so they're getting them out like candy. So in a lot of ways, what happens in Gotham is a mirror of what is happening in America's cities. And also, we've chosen to sort of blame the victims. We've chosen to blame the people who are on the streets, or, why can't the cities crack down on all these homeless people? Why can't they deal with these addicts? As opposed to, while the real criminals, the criminals that cause the problem, are getting away with at the very worst golden parachutes. As they lose their
paying
jobs.
a fine and having
a fine that 1% or less of what they made
the Merklers
off of the disaster they created. And so it's about how, in a lot of ways, the real criminals in Gotham are working for Wayne Enterprises.
Yeah, they're wearing ties. They're going to.
Wayne Enterprises is not like this money laundering operation for the Gotham underworld. It is itself the criminal enterprise. That the underworld are trying to get a piece of.
It's the template that the Falcones have to work off of.
Yeah. And I like that. It's Wayne Pharmaceuticals that is making these drugs and pushing these drugs, and then Bennett profiting from these drugs. And it's a problem that Batman can't punch.
Yes, it's a problem that's deeper than is guerrilla fighting skills. And it's where, I feel like he's in a way learning how to become Batman in stages. In the second issue, he was learning how the guerrilla warfare, the stuff that Ra's al Ghul could teach him, how to be someone's nightmare, how to live in their imagination and show up when they least expect you. And in the third issue, he's kind of learning how to fight a guerrilla war the way Wayne Enterprises fight it, how to what the civilizational cracks that allow a company to profit on other people's misery, and how you sort of fight that, how you use the profits of those companies to negate the damage they're doing.
Very strategic strikes with an orphanage. I use your money for a nonprofit. I use your money for
and also creating a sense of urgency among Wayne Enterprise by saying, I'm going to spend. It's I'm inheriting half of this company, and I'm just going to spend it like a sailor, like a drunken sailor. And if you want to stop me, you got to come fight me on my turf.
Yeah.
drawing them out they said early in the issue. Like Roz also taught me how to get the people where I need them to be. You know.
Well, yeah.
Right. It's like a
It's
chess
not the
game.
battle. It's forcing them to move.
Yeah. The chess game is not like moving your pieces. It's forcing your opponent to move into places that you want them to.
Yeah.
And I won't do too many spoilers because there's a great chess line that Batman says when he's encountering the Justice League, and my favorite cameo in comics in ever. So,
Yeah.
but I do think this is the best issue so far this year, far and away. And like we said when this was first announced, I said it's my I think the best comics writer working doing my favorite character of all time, and so far that's what we're getting.
It's absolutely what we're getting. And today, this one, I'm gonna release this one today. Like I'm gonna release it so that way everything we talk about is relevant.
Okay.
And if you're listening to it and you still have time, you can show up tomorrow because for those of you that you don't know, or if you've forgotten, or somehow live in a cave, Mark Russell is actually in the building. He will be here tomorrow for the signing, starting at 11 a.m. In the shop downstairs. But we're going to be talking about,
And he wrote this issue, yes.
and he wrote this issue. That's the big joke, right?
Well, I'm
But-
speaking so authoritatively about it.
Yeah,
Who is
he's
this
just
guy?
really poured
Who
over
is
the
this guy who
thing.
thinks he knows.
He's really poured over this book.
No, you know Batman and you know Superman because
So-
space age, the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like that same vibe. So
You got such a great handle on these characters. And but just stay on Batman, just real quick before we move off, is earlier you had told me a very, very interesting insight along the lines of what we're talking about Batman's rogues and about the villains of Gotham, the people that are really like chipping away at Gotham are these, the corporations and the organized crime. And then but his rogues, his colorful rogues, they're not really they're just out here. You said they should, he sees himself in them and they should be on his side, if anything.
Yeah, they're more about the game. They're more
Yeah.
about like rebelling against the same system that Batman's fighting.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know how to do it constructively.
Right. Riddler wants to now go through my elaborate maze. Batman's
Yeah.
like, I am wasting time right here.
They're the cynicism without any sort of like goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Batman's trying to show them a goal. Batman sees the rogues gallery, the colorful sort of Bowie-esque villains, as like his natural allies. These are people like him who have sort of turned their back on old Gotham and realized that it's just sort of a fraud. And they're right about that. But his point is like, you should be joining me in my fight to like destroy that Gotham and create the city of tomorrow in its place. Whereas they're sort of content to like, steal an Andy Warhol and like fill the museum full of penguins. And
You'll never catch me, Batman.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have to.
Right.
sort of like typical Gen Xers, They're well, fuck you, Dad.
That's exactly. Do you think that's why Selena has her character, the character of Catwoman, has evolved and become so interesting from where she was in the 60s to where like some of the other rogues are?
Well, I think a lot of, with this, the way I wrote this story is that everyone who's not Batman basically starts out in the rogues gallery or in some way attached to the criminal enterprises of Gotham, because that's really all there is. And then one by one, he starts winning them over to his side. So like Dick Grayson comes over from, being like a henchman in the False Face Society. And like Selena begins to see Batman's point of view and why he's trying to do what he's doing. And Barbara Gordon. And these people come over to Batman's side because he begins to convince them that
Hearts and minds.
yeah, he begins to convince them that this is that there's more than just, you have to do more than just destroy the old. You have to be willing to build the new.
and that's yes.
Yeah.
Well,
You can't live in a city of ashes.
Yeah.
that it's. I've been having a fantastic time, just like today. Just with the little insights and things, and it's amazing how like. I wish everybody could experience something like that, but like you will say something and it's insight, and I feel like I understand more even like in your books where you're coming from, and in that regard, it's been very, I don't know, surreal for me. I do want to touch on. I want to go back a little bit. We kind of talked about it before, but I want to talk about Traveling to Mars as well, which
yes.
wrapped up. So the original idea, when we started talking, I think we had this solidified back in March, I believe. At that time, we were anticipating.
That was years ago.
Yeah, Traveling to Mars was supposed to have been released in a trade paperback format this past Wednesday, so we'd be ready to rock and roll on that. And you've said it before. I'm inclined to agree with you. You know, Dark Age isn't over yet, but so it may change my mind. But Traveling to Mars is my favorite thing that you've done so far. It is. It's actually one of those books where I don't know how you work with pull lists, but Shayne and I's it gets pretty girthy. Like we get a lot of books going through, and I had to always read Traveling to Mars last because it made the rest of the books feel
Really takes a shine off the other books. Like,
yeah, because it made me feel something, and it was real. Like it was. And I don't want to spoil it because I really do want people to go out there. You have to read it for yourself. You have to read it by yourself. I feel even it's like it's.
And I don't want to like put down other creators or denigrate them, but I will just say that you are better than them and at writing.
I feel like this is sort of the pathology of every writer. Is that every writer kind of like, you know, admires other writers, but secretly kind of thinks they're the best. Like, oh yeah,
that's the path.
That's nice. That's cute. You've done that. But and I realize it's not that it's true. It's just that you're writing the books that you want to read.
Right.
And I'm the only one writing, you know, a Mark Russell book that Mark Russell, like, this is a book made just for Mark Russell because it's made by Mark Russell.
Yeah.
And I realize that all the other writers are out there doing the same thing.
Absolutely. Like this Batman is uniquely, could only be a Mark Russell book that told this way.
That's what we should be doing. We should be writing the books that we most want to read in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I appreciate, I mean, I'm sure if you wanted to write canon Batman books and, you know, keep chugging along, I know you've got stories in you where you could do that, but I don't feel like it would be as gratifying as you take everything you've learned about Batman and you make your own story. Because I feel the vibes I'm getting on this was very much, did you read Chip Zdarsky's life story?
Yeah.
The Spider-Man one? Uh-huh. How it goes through the eras. I know yours is doing, you're bouncing between time periods and stuff, but like how, you know, we read these books and it's very much like in a soap opera way, it just always feels like it's happening now. And then you get like flashbacks, but there's not really any life and you don't spend any time in those long enough to like recognize growth in different periods. And that's what I appreciate most about this and that, you know, the life story books is like you spend time there and you can actually, you have a clear-cut time frame where you see a difference, like with Bruce even in Dark Age. I guess we're going back to Dark Age. When he's young and he's this punk-ass kid, in contrast with number 2, where he's like, well, he's learned some stuff and he's got to protect himself when he's in prison. And then moving on from there, it escalates quickly. But like from 1 to 2, those are 2 different people, just like we are in real life. And I feel like you don't get that a whole lot in comics. And it's sad that like in order to do that, you have to mark it with like Black Label or Elseworlds.
I think that, you know, for a long time, comics had the problem of the episodic storytelling.
Yeah.
Where everything had to sort of return to a base norm at the end of the issue, or by the beginning of the next issue is like nothing in the previous issue had even happened. Mm-hmm. Everyone's kind of where they are. So yeah, I think that what has really opened comics up as a storytelling medium is abandoning that model, or at least not exclusively adhering to that model, where you do have characters that pay the price for decisions or that grow as a result of them. And to me, that when you talk about writing with stakes, or, you know, I think a lazy approach to that is, well, we'll just start killing everyone they love.
Right.
Or, you know, fridging their girlfriends.
Yeah.
Whereas what we really should be thinking about when we're talking about writing stakes is like, well, how does this person survive?
Yes.
What are the parts of them that get burned away through the crucible of experience, and what are the parts of them that get refined?
Absolutely.
You would write such a great Kyle Rayner book, man.
Well, that in its very essence is Traveling to Mars, and that's how I'll bring it back in. Mm-hmm. And that is like the humanity of it is the absolute joy of that book. Like it starts off like the premise itself, it's not wild and it's funny. You get to take your shots at, you know, late stage capitalism. You get to take, you know, it's that perfect mix that only you can do, and that is the biggest heart and the biggest humor, and you mash them together, and what comes out is something very organically human. And then with Not All Robots, and then also with Traveling to Mars, you also write robots that are human
in the same way that the appliances in Flintstones were
Absolutely.
every bit as a sentient. Optimus says all sentient beings have the right to life.
Right. So I guess with that theme, like, is there a fascination there with like AI or whatever? With like you give humanity to everything. Like, is that your worldview? Like, do you see that? I mean, or is this like you write and you play make believe and you want things to be that way, and this is the only way that you can actually see that? Or do you? I mean, I guess I'm not forming this very well, but like humanity is what comes through very much so. And I guess
thank
like
you.
I mean,
it's very nice, and I think what a lot of it is that I think writing is just sort of an act of artistic empathy. So even whether it's true or not, it's kind of immaterial. You're trying to see the world through a different character's eyes, or see what is driving them to do what they do, and try to understand the world through their pain. So in a way, that's sort of the connecting tissue for all of us. I feel like in a lot of ways the universe is like a fenced field. And we're all like outside the fence, peeking in through different knot holes. And some knot holes are up high, some are down low, some look, out onto the nice part of the field, some look out onto the, the ditch.
it's been worn down. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're here to sort of collectively give the universe an experience of itself.
And if we all ask what each other are seeing through those holes, we have some idea of what the universe actually looks like.
Yeah, I feel like we are here to provide the consciousness of aggregate, and that can only be understood through trying to understand why somebody is seeing the universe, seeing the same field so differently than you are.
Sure. Yes. No, and you do it well. Like I feel like probably we agree on a lot of things, but then even with agreeing, you have a way of presenting it that I'm just like, man, I never even thought of it that way, and it's a gift, and I think we're all better for it. So with Traveling to Mars, that wrapped up, and we had the conversation. Like we were disappointed that from an Eisner standpoint, it was nominated last year when he didn't even get to have it like finished because they changed the rules halfway through. But like, I definitely would say I would have put it at Book of the Year. I mean, from me, and I think that. For those of you that didn't get a chance to finish it out or were waiting for trade, I want to give you a chance to plug the Kickstarter that kicks off in a few days. Do you have any details on that or anything you want to say out loud as far as?
Yeah, I'm very pleased with the Kickstarter because what it's going to do is provide a deluxe hardcover edition.
Yes.
To people, along with some cool extras that are not going to be in the regular paperback trade. And there are also prizes like original artwork by Roberto Melli, original artwork by yours truly. Not awesome. Nearly as good as Roberto's, but it's out there if you want it.
Sure.
And other little things. And I think any more. This is kind of the way comics works, and that this is the best thing you can do to sort of promote comics is to get people excited on like sort of artisanal level. Like this is something I tangibly want to hold in my hands. And I like that because it's thinking about these things more as like artworks and less as like products. And I feel like
we were talking about earlier with music and how it used to be about the album.
And there's nothing wrong with seeing it as a product. There's nothing wrong with, it's like, well, I got the trade paperback and it, I'll get around to reading it eventually. But there needs to be more than that. There needs to be the experience for people who are like, I really treasure this and I want to hold it in my hands and experience this as part of my. I don't want to just own this. I want to experience it.
Well, and agreed. Kickstarting is brilliant in the sense that when that gets shipped to you, there's that sense of I made this happen, which is awesome as well. Like from a fan perspective, it's gratifying because you know that there was a chance it wasn't going to.
Yeah.
But then you and those instant other friends of yours that had shared that same thing, made it happen. Where I like the Kickstarting bit, like even though, there's been the argument as far as like, well, why wouldn't a Blaze just print it? Just print it. You're like, but I also understand the psychological part of it. I mean, well, and from their aspect, like it removes some of the risk, obviously, from them. And
it helps generate buzz and excitement for the more mass produced trade. So it actually helps the book both as an objet d'art and also as a product. We're just going to
Well,
come to later.
it's just guaranteed that now Shane and I are going to own both versions.
there's
Yeah,
yep.
So
or double dipping.
Yeah,
Yep.
We're milking that cow.
Taylor Swift style. Like, oh, this book's got another track on it. Give me another one.
But one of the sources of my frustration as a creator is that the paper trade backs look so flimsy compared to when you see your work produced in another language, or you see the editions in South America and Europe, and there's these beautiful hardcover,
always
that
Europeans
look
are always
wonderful on your shelf and are really durable. And then you see this trade paper that looks like a glorified Reader's Digest.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't we have something nice for ourselves?
Yes.
And I feel like the Kickstarters and the deluxe editions allow us to do that.
because you're putting the same amount of work in yourself in each thing, whether they had this handsome, beautiful spine or
Yeah.
you can barely see it because of the.
This is a book I spent years writing, and to me, to see a publisher then squat one out like it's an insect egg,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not very confidence inducing.
Sure.
So when you get the publishers like Ablaze that are willing to actually create a deluxe edition, and usually this is something you only get once it's already somehow miraculously proven to be a success.
Sure.
Like with the Flintstones, when that turned out to be successful, then we got the deluxe edition. But the fact that they're doing this for Traveling to Mars right off the bat, to me, says not only a lot about them as a publisher, but also about their confidence in the material.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. Like it was the best book written, and I made me hug my wife a little tighter, made me hug my kids a little tighter. It changed my outlook on from a day to day. Like you start running through life. I get busy, with the shop and whatever else, and you can kind of lose track of, my own behaviors or the way that I take for granted certain things. And I honestly feel different in that way. In this extravagant, crazy, like maybe not so far-fetched story at the not so distant future, and how Roy handles it. And it feels like Shane and I've always talked about it. We've come at it from different angles. Like I look at it as somebody who didn't let the girl get away, and now I've got 3 kids with her, and I feel very fortunate. I am grateful for that when I read this book.
That's great.
And you, Shane,
Girl
have said
got away and in that same issue, and I got just as much out of it as Craig for a different reason. We were reading the same words and the same story, and it was just as effective in different ways. I don't know. There's not too many things that can do that, and that's why this medium is so great, and that's why I want to have people like you. It's a rare instance, and it's one of the rare instances too. It's like when I watched Goodfellas for the first time, and it's like one of the times when you're actually conscious of experiencing great art. You don't usually get that until afterwards, and you're like, "Oh, that was a great book," or somebody tells you you should read this, you should watch this, it's great. It's something that like me and Craig were talking about, like as we were reading the issues, like this is a great work of art, and it's happening in real time. We're standing over Picasso's shoulder right now.
it feels different when you're able to appreciate it while it's still going on. Like you knew it was great, and there's another one next month. And now,
I was
it's different. Like I didn't experience any of the apprehension of it being put to bed with an ending that wouldn't be satisfying. Because
I was wondering how you're going to end it. The whole time I was like, how are you going to stick this landing? You're falling without a parachute, and then when I read that last issue, it was like, oh, exactly like that. The only way it could have possibly ended.
So, and I don't want to make things
Thank
awkward.
you.
Also,
That's
Yeah, I will not be your hype man. I'll be your hagiography man.
that's what you want in an ending is like something that's at once sort of inevitable yet completely surprising.
Yeah, and it was both of those. When Roy after he sends off the robots, and don't listen to anybody else who looks like me, and then he walks off alone, and he's kind of at peace with himself, but not. He is happy but sad. He's all the things at once. It's like everything's coalesced in this one moment. And that's how he ends his life. And all of us should be so lucky to be there at the
The
end.
story is largely one of his regrets, but it's also about the other side of regret, which is that regret is just sort of the negative side of love.
yeah,
And the things you love and the value and the meaning they held for you exists whether or not you actually have them with you physically.
That is for sure. What did Gert say? If I love you, what business is out of yours?
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah.
And
We're all going through it, man.
Well, and just like the fear, like it was sheer terror for me when I thought when they had talked about her, getting the procedure to say, okay, let's put this off. Like I thought my biggest fear when that went down was that all of this that had happened and all of his regret and stuff was because he ended up going back on that word and like was going to try to talk her out of it. And it wasn't anything like that. It was just that it couldn't be reversed. And that's why they were dealing with what they were dealing with. And like, it was weird that I was actually terrified that he would have done something like that. Like, it's very rare that I get that close to a character where I'm just like, don't you dare, motherfucker. Like, that's what I was in my head. That's what was going through my head. I was like,
well,
I don't know. Like,
there are definitely regrets where we have done the wrong thing and we know that we've done the wrong thing and we regret it. But by and large, most of the regrets in life that we have are things that we did not really mean to hurt someone. We did not really mean to do the wrong thing. It's just reality did not work out the way we intended.
Right.
And that's the sort of dark matter of the universe, is like that our intentions are not foolproof, that they don't really determine what's real. And I think that's what he has to come to terms with. It's that, life and reality take on a path of their own, and that doesn't negate any of the things that he tried to do or that he has felt along the way.
And you can also see like him, like everybody else, like whether it's something that could have been helped or not, you still blame yourself. You still walk around with that baggage. And then, all of us should be so lucky to be able to be, sure, he lost his relationship over it, but he gained forgiveness eventually because she got to a place in her heart where she felt that, where she could forgive him. It was just, a whole of life and 11 issues, and, you get some robots at the end.
So, moral of the story, everybody, is I believe it's been pushed to, so get on this Kickstarter. It's got a slipcase. There's all kinds of options. Do that. We're going to be doing the retailer. If there's any type of retailer pack, we'll definitely have them in shop because I think, and I'm not saying this because you're sitting here, from the way that we've talked about it and the people that have actually read it in the following, that trade paperback as of now has the most pulls than we've had in the shop up to date as far as people that want us to order it for them.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
So
I got to do the Kickstarter because I did the Kickstarter for Bunkman Mishaps. So you drew a sloth. And I've got an 8x10 sloth, and I have to have something to put next to it.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure that sloth will be hanging in a museum.
Love that, Mark. It was just terrific. I opened that up, and I was like, "Oh, look at that's delightful."
Sorry, thing is like your child does such wonderful art.
It's true. It's funny. I was this whole time I was like, should I say, because I'm not sure it is a sloth, but I think it is.
It is a sloth.
Okay, yes. See, so then it is a good sloth. It's a very good sloth.
I'm good enough to make a sloth that you will think is a sloth. Just not good enough to make a sloth beyond which there's no question
that you know is a sloth.
Yeah,
there is no question.
And so I mean, might as well just fanboy out here or fan person out while we're here. So this all the things that we've been talking about with Batman and Traveling Mars. This is the guy. So when I first found you with Flintstones, then I went back and read Prez, and then Snagglepuss, and then it's like, oh, this guy's gonna write a bunch of B and C list and D list DC characters, that is my bread and butter. That is my heart and soul. Is the entire the dregs of the DC canon, and it felt like somebody was reading my diary. But you have a book that I want to plug. Two books I want to plug right now that I think are criminally underread. One is the Wonder Twins, which you did 12 issues of. But one is a book called One Star Squadron, a play on the All Star Squadron from the 70s, which of course gave us Power Girl. And reintroduced Red Tornado, and those are the two heavies in this one. Red Tornado and Power Girl run essentially a halfway house for washed
up superheroes.
For washed up superheroes. They get the Heckler or the Gangbusters, people who can't get gigs. They're not making any money off of their deals or fighting crime. Red Tornado gives them like a birthday party to work or a security guard position. And
it's like temp work for superheroes.
Yes,
who can't really do hero work.
Yeah, anymore. They're over the hill, or people don't want them, or times have changed. Like again, Gangbuster has a beautiful arc, but Gangbuster is such a product of his time, and not even that. Gangbuster was a product of like a year and a half time, and you make him something amazing. But can you say? Can you tell me why you said the Heckler was your favorite one, right there, or one of them?
Well, I think the thing I like to do, or the panels where I really feel like I'm writing well, are the ones where it's like, yeah, this is like expressing the entire issue in one line, or this is like saying so much in one panel. And I feel like Heckler got like the majority of those moments.
To just cut through it all and like,
yeah, it just started the guy sort of like breaking down what everyone is not thinking, but should be. And yeah, dropping sick burns.
yeah.
And it's
Very-
like, in a lot of ways, I would aspire to be the Heckler if I could be a hero in the DC universe. That's a hero I use in very loosely, but that's probably who I would.
I found some Heckler comics down there in the dollar bins, and it always tickles me because I remember when I read that the first time, and I was like, is that the Heckler? who would have even thought to put him there? And it was great. I can tell you he was never written that well, and it was great. And somehow I had a segue from that to a Second Coming, but I forgot it. So now this is the segue.
Awesome.
As
take that.
as blocky
I'll
as you can
accept
get.
that.
Because I think again though, with all the humanity that you bring to all these things, imagine this guy writing the story of God wants to, God sends his only son, Jesus Christ, and he has some good lessons for everybody, but he can only 33 years and they kill him. I mean, God was God for 4,000 years, and he barely. So he needs to toughen the boy up.
Yeah.
So he wants to. God comes down. He talks to our Superman, who is Sunstar in this universe, and he's like, I want you to take the boy. Look after him. Show him how to be a hero, how to be a man, and they essentially become roommates. Sunstar and Jesus and. Watching how Jesus interacts with 21st century humanity, how he interacts with an actual superhero, how the superhero interacts with Christ, it's so interesting. And again, this is the guy that, like, if people don't know, he wrote his two first published works were actual works of prose. God is disappointed in you, and Apocrypha Now, which are just retellings of the Bible and the Apocrypha. And he knows from which he speaks. He's very, very well versed in You're very, very well versed in the Bible and the biblical teachings, but I love how your take, which has always been mine, on Christ, the four Gospels, completely distant and disparate, and even different messaging than the rest of the New Testament and the Bible. Jesus had these very, very clear things, and then already Peter and Paul and James were like, well, this, and this, though. It's like, well, no. And that's the Jesus that we're talking to right now.
One of the things that I have come to love about the Bible, now that I've read it from a greater place of understanding, is how it is like so written by imperfect people.
Yes.
And about people trying to like cover the bald spots of their own understanding of the universe. Mm-hmm. So like the first gospel written is the Gospel of Mark, of the canonical gospels anyway.
Yeah, it is.
And it's the shortest. And there's no virgin birth. There's no Christmas story, and in the original version there wasn't a resurrection either. Mm-mm. It was just sort of like Christ shows up on the scene at some point, starts teaching these things, and is shivved because of it, and dies, and that was the original gospel. But then I feel like what happened was probably when people started reading that, they're like, well, how could he be the Messiah then? He died. Mm-hmm. And so then the next gospel is like, oh, but did I mention that he came back to life?
And by the time you get to the last canonical gospel, John, now he's performing miracles on the daily. He's telling you
he's God himself.
Yeah,
he's one and the same with God.
Yep. The Logos.
Yeah, and then like the next objection is like, well, how could he be the Messiah? He wasn't of the lineage of David, and he didn't match these prophecies. So they're like, oh well, did we mention?
And the book just opens it with
yeah, he was born in Bethlehem, even though he'd never set foot in Bethlehem a day in his life after that. He was born there, the city of David, and to a virgin, as foretold in Isaiah, which actually was a misreading of Isaiah, because back then, when they were writing in Hebrew, a virgin was just what you called a young unmarried woman.
So it wasn't even referring to a virgin,
a sexual, But in the Gospels, when they're writing in Aramaic and then later in
Greek, right?
Greek, yeah. The word virgin meant somebody who had never had sex, so they had to sort of
retcon it. The original retcon,
the retcon the prophecy,
Jesus' origin story.
Yeah, so it was them trying to expand on the story, which I don't fault them for that.
No,
I mean, that's what every good writer does. It's like, well, let me expand.
We're trying to build the lore out.
Right.
You know?
But a lot of what the New Testament is, and even the letters, the epistle section, is like it's these people arguing with each other over what it all means.
What? Yeah. Well, that's not what he said. Yeah, what he told me. He came to me and he told me. He's like, oh, well, he told me when I was there, Paul.
And not
There's a lot of shit talking between Paul and his posse and like James and Peter and their group.
And that's where I've always felt like this weird, odd, strange connection to like comic books in that way.
Yeah.
Like the very beginning is all this fantastical stuff. And then those letters that you're referring to are exactly like the letters in the back of the books when I was growing up, where there was an immense amount of shit talking, or like, I think it should be this way, even with the books. I don't know.
Right. It was the original toxic fan base.
Right. Yeah.
Before there was even Star Wars.
Sure.
But across all four of the Gospels, one thing that is uniform is Christ comes across as just a good guy.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of the inherent tragedy and also sort of the humor of the Bible is that this guy does this incredibly radical and beautiful thing, and that he tries to convince people that they don't need to live according to the rules of revenge and bribery, which is sort of how every empire
At the height of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, it's like, well, either you do it or I'll stab you, or alternately, I'll pay you and you do it. And
Right.
There's no other reason for you to do anything.
Either way, someone's getting stabbed.
And he's like, well, what if you just gave someone who needed a coat? You know, or what if, you know, you just helped somebody because for the simple fact they needed it, which is in a lot of ways. Or what if, you know, yeah, this person did you wrong, but if you get revenge, you're just going to be fighting each other for generations.
Like, what's that going to do?
So why not just like say, well, you know, it's not going to control my life. And to me, it's an incredibly radical and wise thing. But yeah, we just can't have good things without people saying, well, this good human being meant this, you motherfucker.
Yeah, and all of that. Now, I mean, and now we're going to resort to fisticuffs. People are going to get hurt over our views of this.
If you don't see the compassion in this, I will fucking stab you.
All right?
It's like,
In Jesus' name, amen.
The New Testament is.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
And I like even in the Gospels though, the Pharisees would come and they'd be like, but what about this? And I've told Craig this is my joke, because every time they would come to him, Jesus would always start his sentences with, and again I tell you. And I think a better translation is, for fuck's sake. Okay. And I love that at the end, like, that's why the golden rule is so important, because Jesus is like, I will make it as simple as I fucking can. Just be nice. That's it. And we have not even gotten that. We haven't even come close. And that's the Jesus in Second Coming is what I'm getting to. That's the Jesus, the very sensible, the very like, I didn't even think it was radical. I just thought maybe we should just do these regular things.
If you were to make like a modern story of Christ, it would be like somebody who's like framed for a crime they didn't commit and gets sent to prison and doesn't understand that there's like, you know, the Aryans, and then there's like the drug dealers, and then there's like the MS-113 or whatever in prison. He doesn't understand all these gangs. He's actually excited for the arts and crafts. Right. And he thinks they should all be friends. And of course, you know, it's like sharing his pudding in the cafeteria. And he just gets shanked like right away.
Immediately, like, oh. And
did you guys know that we get to make license plates here?
I would be, yeah, you'd go to the cafeteria, like, oh, we don't have enough food, and everybody, we only got a few loaves of bread and fish. And Jesus is like, whoa, not on my watch. But no, yeah, Second Coming, and throughout the, it's 18 issues that have been
published so far. And we're working on a fourth volume, so there will be more. There will be at least 24.
Oh, that's at least, maybe more?
Yeah, I'm hoping for a fifth volume, and I think that will be probably the last one. Okay, that will be where the story wraps up.
Boy, to have 30 issues of a creator-owned about Christ and his
who would have thought?
That's a miracle in itself. Am I right?
Can you? The story that you told us earlier? Could you tell that? Like on the one about how it was originally a Superman story and that whole big deal? Like,
oh yeah, you know, when I originally I pitched this to DC, I was at a meeting with Dan DiDio, who was the publisher at the time, and Marie Javins, who was my editor, and I was pitching Superman ideas because I was interested in writing Superman, and I kept pitching these ideas, and they kept shooting them down. They're like, no, that's been done, or no, that's too crazy, or whatnot. And Weirdly, the one they gravitated to was the very last. The one I was reluctant to bring up was like, well, it's about Superman sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with Jesus Christ. And I could just see them both sort of like look at each other, and like sort of think about it. And then like Dan said, I like it, but I get death threats if Superman refuses to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll do it, but he can't be Superman. You've got to come up with another hero, and then we'll publish it at Vertigo. So I changed it to Sunstar, which worked out better because Sunstar is a very different character than Superman.
Yeah.
And I think it works much better to have someone who is very different to type than Jesus Christ being his roommate, someone who actually can learn a lot more from him. And you know, it obviously didn't get published by Vertigo. That's a different story, but I'm glad it's had the run it has, and the fandom, people who read it find it. It's enormously gratifying to me when I meet them at conventions.
And just like your Goddess, and this is what I tell people come in, just like Goddess is pointing with you in Apocrypha Now, like sure, it has a lot of humor in it, but it is weirdly faith affirming. You'll get out of it what you put into it. I think what you bring to it, you will. I mean, it's not gonna. I don't think it'll kind of convert anybody, but I don't think you're trying to proselytize either.
No, I was actually naive that I am, kind of surprised when it was controversial, because nobody had read a single page of it. So
Sure.
what are you angry about? And two, it's like this is actually a very pro-Christ story.
Very.
Jesus is the real superhero in that story.
He is the Son of God. He does perform miracles.
And so, I was kind of shocked that there was this much outrage, before it was. But I think once it did come out, it sort of took a lot of the wind out of the sails of the people who were, just sort of like
Wanting it to be what they thought it would.
the Fox News culture war people. And
A rare miss for the folks at Fox.
yeah, if only they'd known. The controversy just sort of evaporated after that once people saw what it was. I think it wasn't that the people who like to cause controversy realized they were wrong. I think it's the people they were trying to rile up. Once they saw it for themselves, were like, oh, well,
I could teach this in schools.
they lied to me about this the same way they lied to me about the Iraq War.
Yeah, and maybe I'm going to change my vote. I don't think that happened either,
probably
but
not.
yeah, people they there's a controversy when Life of Brian came out. They thought it was,
that's kind of the way I saw it. It was
where's the bottom, folks?
Horrible anti-Semite though he was, Henry Ford was right about one thing. He said that if he had asked the customer what they wanted in 1895, they would have said a bigger, stronger horse.
That's true. Yep.
Right.
The point is that the customer isn't always right. In fact, the customer is almost always wrong.
I mean, isn't that role, and that's why like the need to tell new ideas and tell new stories is important, and not keep giving the same old thing, because that
the customer doesn't know what they want until they see it, and your job is to show them what you wish they could have, and it's up to them to decide to embrace it or to
it's the difference
shun it in horror. But if you don't take that risk, if you don't give people the options, then nothing new ever gets created.
No.
It's just a bunch of kayfabe. It's a bunch of superheroes doing professional wrestling.
You're stuck with Disney Star Wars is what you're stuck with.
Yeah.
So, and then something that I don't think a lot of people know that you wrote that I love, because it's a character that I've loved forever, and I was so glad that she was finally getting written like this, was Red Sonja. And I lament, I know there was some your departure from Dynamite, but the work that you did on that character was incredible. And I don't think it got read nearly enough. But I don't know what the Sonja, I mean, I think the people that have always read Red Sonja still read Red Sonja, but I think the bump in quality was there. Just like when Gail
To date, that's your longest running thing,
Yeah,
right?
weirdly, I think it's the one where I bring it up. People are like, "What? You wrote Red Sonja?"
Like
but
2
also,
years worth.
yeah, but also I've written more issues of Red Sonja than anything else.
Yeah.
That's wild. Did you find
I guess that's like sort of underscoring my futility as a writer. It's like the biggest thing I've ever done. No one's heard of.
That's why me and Craig, we are adherents to the Gospel of Mark. We're out there pounding the pavement. We're knocking on doors. We're handing out the literature.
But
we're making
X-Factor
converts.
has to have made some shift.
X
there,
Factor
right?
is gonna lift all boats. I would assume that yes, X Factor, your Superman and Batman books have to at least get some
Yeah, no, I feel like
eyes on you.
Part of the problem was that I imagined I was a bigger deal than I was, like 10 years ago, because I'd had a hit comic. I thought, well, everybody's be beating down my door, and everything I write now is going to be popular. And that was not the case. And that's not really the way I think most career trajectories work, is that you do things that, sometimes they land with the public imagination, and you do things and sometimes just no one cares. And you just have to sort of keep writing.
Well, and societies change along with, I'm sure to a certain degree, how much, other people, I guess you would say, I'm putting the quotes up now, that are just bulletproof. They can put out whatever they want. Is there a difference in the hustle that they have compared to the hustle that you have? There's all kinds of, I suppose, different aspects of it. I'm sure some writers feel more comfortable with that self-promotion thing. We had talked about it, where it's that if that feels like work and not fun as part of it, I'm sure that there's a little bit of a struggle there as far as even getting it out. You've been very humble and very, appreciative for the compliments that we give. You don't strike me as the type of person where you walk around handing out cards being like, did you know that I'm a writer? Here, read this. You're going to love this for sure. As compared to other people I've met where they're more than happy to drop it casually in conversation.
Oh, he did show up when Craig picked him up at the airport. He was wearing an ascot and a fedora, but
no, I find the promotion and the business side of comics the hardest part for me, because part of the whole reason I'm doing this is to avoid having a real job.
Yeah.
So to have to do that stuff is just sort of rubs me the wrong way. But at the same time, I live in real admiration of the people who do that effortlessly.
Yeah.
And I wish I was more like that. And I try, but it's work for me. It's work for me to make myself sit down and promote the things that I'm doing. It's work for me to make sure I'm sending out invoices and staying on top of the business end. Almost every other writer out there, it seems like, has a Substack or some sort of newsletter that talks about their project. I do not.
Yeah.
And part of it is not that I don't see the value in it. It's just that I don't know where they find the time. Yeah. And part of it is me, is if I given the choice, if I have an hour, I'm almost certainly going to spend it actually writing and not writing about the writing.
Right.
Because it's just what I enjoy doing. And it's kind of hard for me to delay that gratification, or to make myself focus on the part of writing that I find.
That seems boring. Those newsletters are like the yearly Christmas card that my family or whatever else puts out. That letter catching everybody up on a bi-weekly basis. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed this last issue of blah blah blah. I'm currently blah 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 blah. The narration aspect of it. Are they actually doing it? I'm just assuming that they have
I don't know.
an assistant or something that just pops that out, because I can't imagine being a creative mind and thinking that, I better sit down and write my newsletter.
I feel like every time I see all these Substacks and newsletters and whatnot, I feel like a student driver, because it's I have no idea. They all seem to be zooming by me, and I have no idea how to even pull out into traffic.
Right.
And I don't even know how to begin promoting myself. Luckily, people like you seem to willing to do it for me. But it is the hardest part of being a professional writer for me, is all the stuff that involves not writing.
the hustle.
So I am what else?
Well, we haven't even touched on X Factor, but I feel like Mark's listing, and because Mark took the red eye in today, and we've been riding him hard.
Yes, this is an ancient writer's trick of taking a red eye so you could save the cost of a hotel room for one night.
There you go.
Yes, this is the how you survive as an artist or in the creative economy.
So, would you like to cut it off here and possibly move on, Mark, or do you want to have? Can we touch on X Factor and then wrap it up? Is that cool?
That sounds good.
Just run through. Billionaire Island's great, and What Dead Box is great, and then
Absolutely.
what's the other one I wanted to
Rumpus Room.
Rumpus Room that just
talk
came, the
about
trade
Rumpus Room,
the trade just came out. Everybody should pick that up. It's fantastic. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Heart and humor all the way through.
The Chandelier.
Oh, my bad.
From My Bad. The Chandelier. I just read the what's it called. It's just
Peculiar Island.
just a great character.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel like My Bad is probably the funniest of the titles.
Yeah, those are definitely where.
Which I'm co-writing with Bryce Ingman, with Peter Krause on art. And it's also kind of the most fun title, I think.
Yeah, pure humor, pure. It's
One
great.
where I don't really have to feel like I have to get all up in my own head and think about part because I'm only writing half the comic. And also in part just because it's just sheer wackiness.
It is. But the anger, the righteous anger in the Billionaire Island is still, it's beautiful to see.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when I read your Superman Space Age, I definitely recognize your Lex.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, X Factor is the big one coming up, right?
Yes. Part of the new X-Men universe. We're doing X Factor with Bob Q, Robert Quinn on art, who I adore. We've worked on several things together. We've done a couple of Hawkeye Avengers issues together, and we also did a lot of the Red Sonja run
great.
I did together, and he also was the artist on my my short Lone Ranger series.
Yes, a great series if you guys can find it.
But so I've worked with him a lot, and he's like one of these guys who just gets it and knows how to do it all. He can do humor, he can do action, he can do emotions. Just one of my favorite people in comics to work with, and just getting the pages from him has been great. But yeah, we're already working on the 3rd issue, so hopefully people get a chance to see it.
Okay, and so you can do a team book. What is your core X Factor team? Because I know you said you have people coming in and out, but
people come in and out. But here are the characters that you will that you'll see the most of: Havoc, Polaris, Angel, Cecilia Reyes, and then I created a couple of new mutants. One called Zyber, who gives off like electromagnetic pulse.
Okay.
But every time he does, it's like getting like a 10,000 X-rays. So he can only do so many before he dies.
oh,
So he has to choose when to do it, sort of sparingly.
okay,
But it's ultimately like he when he needs to do it, it's like he pretty much needs to do it to save the team.
drastic measures.
And then almost like an opposite character to him is Granny Smite, who is like an 83-year-old woman who recently discovered she's an immortality mutant. And she discovered this only because she survived a couple of unsurvivable disasters, her house burning down and then a plane wreck. And now that she's realized she's an immortality mutant, she is horrified by it because she's 83 years old and she doesn't want to live as an old. She doesn't want to keep getting older. So she joined the X Factor so that she can go on all the suicide missions and hopefully find a way, something
The killer.
that can kill her. Which makes her incredibly formidable and also sort of, I think, sort of a cute sort of presence. Not as dark as I'm making it sound.
Sure. That's great. Did you get to pick any of those the mainline ones? Or
Yeah, it was sort of, you're picking, but you're picking from who's available because there's like a bunch of X-Men titles.
Yeah.
They're all sort of grabbed up. Also, Frenzy is going to be, and Feral.
Feral, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's excellent.
So, were you approached to do the book, or was this a pitch that you had put in?
I was approached to do it,
That's awesome.
which is great because I never imagined in a million years they'd let me write an X-Men book. But
And that's great. And appropriately, Havoc and Polaris are on the team together as they should be. But no, we were surprised as anybody that like Craig called me I was at work, like, guess who's going to do X Factor? Like, couldn't believe it. So
yeah, me neither.
And as brilliant is at least on the Greg Land cover that we've seen, the symbol, the X,
Yeah,
the factor,
Pulling it
that's
up now.
designed by Bob Q.
which
the logo.
it's just brilliant. I was like, oh, it just makes sense. It's cool.
yeah,
But that is August, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that is in like the I guess the
August
second wave of when the book started. Like, June,
Yeah,
July.
second wave.
Yeah. Okay. So
Boy, that's going to be something. Oh wow! And there are now about 15 variants for it because
Good.
it is an X-Men title, and that is terrific.
You should let me draw one. I'll draw a sloth.
Oh man, get it.
speaking of which, tomorrow, are you willing to do a little drawing on some blank covers?
Oh yeah, I'll draw stuff.
Like maybe a
I'd make no claims as to drawing it well, but I'll draw it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Great.
So I think, unless you've got anything else, anybody else want to talk anything, I think this is a cool experience, just getting to sit down with you, Mark, and
Thank
talk
you
about
so
your
much.
books.
This has been a lot of fun.
As I've said before, you should never meet your heroes. But for me, that's only true if your hero's not Mark Russell.
Mark Russell.
And then it's an absolute delight.
So that is going to do it for this week. Just to push again, I'm going to do all of this and release it tonight. So if you hear it and you listen, tomorrow being May 25th, Saturday, May 25th.
Today's my sister's birthday. Happy birthday, sis.
Mark is going to
She
be
doesn't listen. She's never.
in the store tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. till like Route 1. Then we'll break for lunch. Store will still be open, obviously. And then come back at 2, and you'll sign as long as there's people there, right?
I'll sign as long as people want me to sign stuff.
All right. So that'll do it for this week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
That's it.